Welcome back to the Innovation Engine podcast. I'm your host and Three Pillars Chief Evangelist Scott Barho, and I am thrilled to be joined today by Bernie Doone. Bernie is the industry leader for Three Pillars Information Services industry vertical, where he helps a broad range of companies harness data, information, and innovation to develop new products and services for their customers. You may remember Bernie as the co-host for past episodes, such as with Marianne Johnson, Chief Product Officer at Cox Automotive, and Josh Eastright, CEO of Bloomberg Industry Group. Bernie, welcome back to the Innovation Engine. I'm really excited to have you on.
Scott, great to be here.
Well, and you and I, we go. Our careers at Three Pillars started right around the same time, so we've been on quite a journey together. So I've been really looking forward to this conversation. But let's help our audience out. Information services is not a common phrase, and so many may not know what kind of businesses that refers to. So can you kind of anchor us in a definition and some examples?
Yep. You can think of information services as B2B companies whose primary asset is insights and then value-added services. These are companies that help other companies in multiple industries accomplish something. It can be helping them sell more goods, get to insight faster, to connect with their audiences. There are several subsectors within information services, just to give some context and flavor around the types of companies. Financial data companies like Bloomberg and S&P are information services companies. Automotive data companies and services companies like Cox Automotive, that owns Kelley Blue Book and vehicle valuations and intent data, information services. Scientific, technical, and medical publishers, Springer and Elsevier. Credit data, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, consumer product goods, Nielsen IQ. So there are a number of different sectors, but the commonality is that they're taking data and information. Typically, it's proprietary data. They're also getting data from third parties and publicly available data, enriching that data, often doing their own research, and then turning data into insight and content. Background, some of the companies started off as B2B publishers and over time evolved to digital media so they can have their own content and editorial and research teams. But everything powered by information. Information is really the product that helps another company accomplish whatever their goal may be.
Well, and that you remind me that in a follow-up conversation with Josh Eastright from Bloomberg, it was so interesting because I think of Bloomberg, and I think a lot of people do, as a media company, right? They publish, there's articles from Bloomberg, et cetera, and that's a lot of people's knowledge of them comes from that. But understanding what his group does, Josh Eastright's group, focusing on tax, government law. You're looking at a tax professional trying to look up a particular piece of the tax code. Get additional information around it, or maybe uploading a contract and looking for common language if you're a lawyer for that particular clause. That was eye-opening to me to think about like what an information services product looks like, and why Bloomberg Industry Group is considered an information services company and not a media company for our purposes.
Yeah, I liked what Josh said about providing insight at the point of need. So helping someone like understanding the context of their workflow and when is the moment of struggle or need where I can leverage the product to make my job easier and get the insight when I need it to make my day go faster. But yeah, fantastic. And that's a great example. A couple other examples are Earth Networks is a company that has global weather sensors around the world, and they're collecting lightning strike data and publishing that nearly in real time for sports teams and stadiums and local government authorities to keep people safe. So a lot of different really interesting use cases in this sector and some common themes and approaches to how you organize information, make it available, and then how do you drive visualizations and intuitive user experiences to make that data and information discoverable.
So that comment actually leads really well into my next question, which is, as you observe this market, and I know you do, you're very well read and obviously you talk to a lot of leaders in this space. Like, what do you hear are some of the biggest opportunities or broadest opportunities trends that you're seeing in this space specifically?
I would say over the last 5 years, I've seen a commonality in sort of competitive model, or how you approach competing with other companies in your sector, but more importantly, providing value and information insights to your customers is companies are building a common data platform. So a unified data store that brings all of your information together in one place versus having siloed data that you've acquired through acquisitions or sort of just organically acquired different data sources and silos over time. So you need a common data platform to bring everything together. On top of that, you need metadata, you need really intelligent, intuitive search. But once you've got that in place, there's a trend towards revenue diversification. So companies are saying, I have a traditional audience of X, Y, Z, and they're interested in the information that I have. But a Wall Street firm or a hedge fund seeking alpha might be interested in purchasing some of my data. Or if I've got real estate MLS data with photographs of staged homes and things like that, then I might be able to get information on paint colors and furniture and design trends and things like that. So we've seen companies say this is like the core market that we serve, but I could diversify revenue by leveraging the information that I have today and launching a new product in an adjacent market or something completely different to diversify revenue. Another one I've seen is the evolution of the customer experience. So traditionally, companies have built experiences for the power user, like I'll do Boolean search or I'll do a pretty detailed search and things like that. And over time, I've seen companies start to build experiences for the budget holder. So these are typically subscription-based services. So if I can provide insights to an executive or C-suite audience at their point of need proactively without doing a search, I've seen that evolution of the experience happen over time. And now, as I'm sure we'll talk about today, and we've talked about one-on-one many times, there are new tools in the toolkit like generative AI that have their own capabilities to help accelerate product innovation and deliver efficiencies and insights in new ways that in some cases can help the audiences of these companies.
Yeah, I mean, the AI topic in particular seems really exciting if you're in information services, but also threatening and concerning because a lot of companies don't have the experience with these tools. There are limitations as well as there are the opportunities and to be able to navigate that. So it's an exciting but also interesting time, I think, in your sector in particular. But as you mentioned, customer experience and the transformation of customer experience, one of the things that really strikes me is when you have these rich data sets and you think about the point of need, as you were talking about, it's very possible those points of needs are going to be inside the ecosystem of that business. And therefore, APIs can play a really strong part in like this data delivered into the ecosystem of a customer might be more effective than a software as a service product that you have to navigate to and log into and use. And I've seen more companies doing those kinds of rich integrations. Are you seeing that as well in your vertical?
Yeah, and the way I would frame up the response is that we see three channels of distribution of like the content and insights that these companies are producing. One would be the web and mobile products. So let's call that like the product experience. And that's typically a SaaS or subscription-based product. That can also include integrations of workflow to help solve the need for the customer, when they need to kind of integrate with their ecosystem. But interestingly, a lot of the products that we help build for companies in the space are for their customers who are Meta or X, formerly Twitter, some really large technology companies, and they've got very large data science and AI teams, and they're like, you know what? I don't necessarily need the user interface. I want to directly ingest the data into my machine learning models or my data lake for to feed machine learning and algorithms and deeper analysis. So
Mm,
API as a product is a really important capability to have in the information services space, and it's not I guess the APIs of old where you build an API and kind of build it and they will come. Um, that there's high expectations for highly performant
mm,
APIs, and then a very intuitive, well designed developer experience.
right.
So it's worth noting, I guess, as a sidebar, as we're talking about the opportunities in the space, is that many of the companies started as publishers, and then they became
Mm,
also data companies, data, and there's a lot of power and value in the proprietary nature of the data. But they're also discovering that having really strong talent in product design and user experience to make that data discoverable in an intuitive and usable way and displayed in data visualizations that are
mm,
more customized to the particular use cases of that industry is really, really important. So
mm.
important to
That's
validate your
interesting.
ideas, get your information in the hands of the users, but display the information in a way that is intuitive and usable for that particular audience, and then for their stakeholders. So you think of
Mm,
CPG company, like I need to help sell more of my good, but my stakeholders are the CEO, the chief marketing officer, the chief strategy officer, and I need to provide insights and information that is useful to them, but within an industry context versus built around CPG, which would be totally different from weather data or some of the other sectors.
yeah, yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Well, one of the things that one story that you just reminded me of was helping a client that I won't name, but a very well known market research company. Um, and their hypothesis coming to us was, we need more visualization tools and try to keep our customers on our platform performing those visualizations. And so we just need more features, and we want you guys to accelerate features on visualization. And it turns out that actually they wanted to manipulate the data. And that's why they were downloading the data, doing and then manipulating that data locally and through Excel and other and tools like that, in
Yep.
order to produce then visualizations with the exact data set they wanted, whether that was a filter data set or a combined data set with other data sets, maybe local or inside data sets. And so that it was just so interesting because it sort of makes sense. Like we're not getting the engagement that we expected out of this product, so we need more features. And it turns out actually your paradigm is incorrect. They need the data to be more relevant in their context, and that relevance right now is being solved by combining the data sets or filtering the data sets through Excel, rather than because the platform did not allow them to do that. So just interesting as you talk about those themes. Getting to see that firsthand with a client was really an
Yep.
aha moment and a great catch.
And
Um,
perhaps not unique to information services, but worth calling out is that you know as a company in any space, or as a company like Three Pillar working with other companies, it's important to get a sense for the culture. So some companies
mm,
have a sales driven culture, and a sales driven culture can be more oriented around what are the new features we're going to be releasing.
mhm,
A data driven culture may be around, hey, I've got my data structured in a certain way and I want to build the products around that data structure, which isn't necessarily the right solution for the customer. Ultimately, we
mhm.
want like a customer centric culture that designs to solve for the need of the customer while creating a Venn diagram with business outcomes, right? We don't want to solve for every need. We want to solve for self-funding product needs that the customer is willing to invest in.
Yep.
But yeah, it's an interesting space. And a few years ago, we helped a leading research company that had proprietary research build a self-service tool for discovery of their research assets for their customers. And it started off with, well, we need to visually display the insights, the nuggets of information that are available. But they wanted a collaborative workspace where they could assemble those insights into stories and then share those out with their audiences. So the more you
Mm,
get into the user research and understanding the context of the user, you can see how that integrates into the context of their day and the jobs to be done when you use that framework.
That is their data. And obviously you've talked about this before, but what do you see taking place in the data realm around things like unified data hubs?
Well, it's a fascinating question that I love, and it's a meaty one. We could spend a lot of time, but I would frame it up this way: the data landscape is constantly changing and evolving. In conversations with a lot of data practitioners and industry thought leaders, and there's a lot of conversation around the myth of the modern data stack, because it's constantly changing, right?
Right.
So we've seen an evolution from SQL to data warehouses, for analytics, to data lake for unstructured data that can fuel machine learning. Those are very excellent, useful iterations, and then the lake house, and data hubs. And you've seen the rise of companies like Snowflake and Databricks who've been very successful, right? But also a lot of investment into solutions along the data stack. So rather than having kind of one size fits all solution, companies have to craft their approach to how they're going to manage data. And we've helped a lot of companies create what we call the unified data store, which is an approach to centralizing your data in the cloud and making it available across the organization. So think of it as the opposite of data silos, but getting everything available in the cloud where you need it. And that is similar or the same, if you will, in concept to the data hub. So the data hub, the advantage of that is that is governed and processed data. It's ready to be used and consumed for different use cases across the organization. And typically it's available for enterprise data use, but in the information services sector, it's also available to be productized, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you can drive multiple products from one data set, essentially, which can be composed then of multiple data sources.
That's right, exactly. Yep. So Cox Automotive, early 2022, announced Drive Q, which has consumer intelligence and market intelligence and vehicle intelligence. And then they leverage that to launch 37 new products into the market and something like 10,000 product enhancements.
So I love hearing stories like that, because it really is this power of composability in product development, right? This idea that you can take different pieces and parts and compose them into unique products that serve different needs. But when you put the data piece in there, getting that return on investment really almost requires if I had this data set, what are all the possibilities and things that I could do with it? And it certainly changes the investment picture from that standpoint.
Exactly. Another interesting story is Equifax. Equifax invested $1.5 billion in the cloud, moving to the Equifax cloud over a few years, and created a common data fabric, right? So it's like 100 separate data silos put into one. Equifax, like other companies, has grown through acquisition, but putting that information together in one place creates the common data fabric, as they frame it up, is that's an approach, but it makes the information available, but also governed, right? You might have all the information available in place, but not everyone should have access to all data. Some companies have PI, public or private data that needs to be protected, but it gives you the right safeguards around data. But from there, you can do interesting things, like you were saying, composable products. Now I can take that common data fabric or that enterprise-wide data hub, and I can create a sector-specific data hub for a particular use case. So Equifax created Total Verify Data Hub, which allows them to do like employment verifications and background checks and things like that for a particular audience and use case, and monetize that, and then structure a different data hub for a different audience segment. So it's a really interesting concept. It's an approach to where you store your information in the cloud, how you store it, how you govern it, metadata, and the whole approach to a unified approach to getting your data in one place. What I love about it, though, and speak with clients a lot about, is how that either helps or hinders you in accelerating product innovation. If you have it, it's great. So you can do that composable products and you can move fast. If you don't have it, then you're on the data silo spectrum, or you're somewhere in the middle. You can design a fantastic product, but you might not be able to move as fast as some of your competitors. So it becomes almost table stakes for competition in the information services sector to have this capability in place, so that you can produce an ROI and realize value faster through that concept.
Well, and I go back to some of the concepts in Silicon Valley, like do things that don't scale and this kind of thing. Like, because you and I both know through the product mindset, we can take a hypothesis for a particular product and slice it just very thinly, right, and go after that value proposition rather than building the whole data hub first. You can do that in order to prove out that yes, there's gold in these hills, and then that can help you fund hey, there's more of these hypotheses that we have, and we want to make that bigger swing investment. So there's a couple different ways you can come at it, either horizontally or vertically. And frankly, I like it when clients come at it vertically first. It's like, prove out that there's some gold in this hill before you go mining it. Digging is not a good idea. So you can churn a lot of resources quickly. So a couple different ways to go about doing this. And one other thing that I think is worth mentioning here, because we're just getting ready to launch our data engineering offering, is the insight that using software engineers to do data engineering work is not a good recipe. Software engineers use different tool sets. They're used to using logic, if-then statements, and things like that. Whereas data engineers are used to using tools and the cloud. A lot of these tools didn't exist when many of the CTOs and CIOs of our clients were building products or doing anything technical. So the space has transformed so much. The tool sets have moved so far ahead that you really do need a differentiated mindset for working with data as an asset. How you massage it, how you move it around, how you apply scripts. I've got plenty of engineers who tell me, like, oh yeah, I do Python. It's like, no, you run Python scripts over data sets. You're a data engineer. You're not a Python engineer. You can't write me a product built on Python. But there's a little bit of confusion, I think, in the market around that. And that's I think a key differentiator for us is that we've understood that and are working on incubating and developing that talent to help clients do this well.
Yeah, I love it. Data engineers or data engineering are like the unsung heroes of data science and AI and machine learning, right? Because you have to have the core data engineering in place and all the things that go along with that in order to have the data in the right structure and place and format and cleanse and all the other steps to make it available for data science and generative AI and all the other things.
Plumbing is not sexy, but it's super important.
I love what you said about incremental value as well, because we have helped a number of clients with platform modernization. Sometimes it's called application modernization or data platform modernization. By moving from what you have today, which could be hodgepodge maybe, but it can be an amalgamation of a lot of growth through acquisitions and legacy technology. Sometimes vendor lock-in, aging code, and moving slow, right? To building the kind of platform for the future that supports your business strategy and your product strategy. So when we're talking about building the plan for platform modernization, starts with, well, what's your product strategy? What do you need it to be today, and where are you going in the future? Because the right platform view is the one that serves your roadmap, right? But
Right.
then it's incremental value along the way. Sometimes these are large efforts and endeavors. And to show proof of value, you target things near term in the roadmap that will be self-funding, that will
Mm.
demonstrate clear value, so that you can go through stage gate approvals and continue to go on your modernization journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's really the only way to do it responsibly. I think is to let the investment follow the return. Um,
Well
and and
said.
and sometimes you have to place bets, but you want to place the smallest bet possible with the biggest possible return. And this is a place where I think a lot of times we can be very good advisors on just alternative ways of going about doing that. I've shared with you stories before about being asked to build me a data lake. To do what? I don't know. But if you build it, then we'll figure out what it's going to do. And it's like this approach does
I'm glad
not
that
work.
data lakes are important. Let's
you're
go on.
you're going to be very disappointed at what this data lake does when we get there. But if it's your money, so but
Exactly. So
anyways,
good stewards. Yep.
yeah,
So I think the information services industry can be a good beacon or example for even other industry sectors, because the data hub is very powerful for enterprise data and operational efficiency of your business and lots of customers, but it can also be a source of revenue generation and innovation. So you can find new audiences and new markets to serve with that data, and having that available in one place, and microservices and APIs and easy to couple and decouple, allows you to move fast and innovate, and that can lead to better outcomes for your customers, but also competitive advantage.
let's dig into a concept that I think is probably really applicable to the information services sector in particular. And usually when we talk about digital products, our minds tend to think about SaaS products. And certainly as many of the examples that you and I used here were SaaS products. But in the case of information services, that doesn't have to be the case. So, what are some good examples that take us beyond the selling licenses? Let's just use that concrete example, right? Selling licenses for logins. What are some real world products that you can't touch or feel? I feel like we
Oh,
touched on a few already, but it's worth
yeah,
revisiting.
it's an interesting question. And so far, I haven't seen the Vulcan mind meld or telepathy used for conveying information yet, but I'm sure someone's working.
Elon's working on it.
I'm sure, yeah, it actually is. You're right. That's obvious. But I'll go back to, there are three main channels available for information services companies, right?
Mm,
It's the web and mobile product experience, that SaaS based product, and to the extent you can interact with your web and mobile device, then you can kind of tangibly interact with the data and drive that. And then there's the APIs, right? I want to provide the information available through licensing to companies that want to directly ingest that. And then the third one is data marketplaces.
oh, right. Yes, that's right.
Some of the larger financial data players are hosting data on data marketplaces, but some of the risks or concerns that information services companies have broadly, not just with data marketplaces, is the perceived value of your information. The opposite of that would be commodity risk. So as you're building out a data platform for an audience or an industry, or for multiple audience and industries, you want to make sure that you're delivering differentiated value, and you're not running the risk of being perceived as a commodity, right? So
Right.
the concern I've heard voiced with data marketplaces is that you can be commoditizing your data. Where I host my data is important, and maybe I wanted
Hmm.
to provide a limited set of data that can be used for lead gen into one of my subscription-based products or APIs, or a more robust, comprehensive solution for the customer need.
Yeah.
And then the Bloomberg had the terminal on the desk, right, for years.
Yeah.
You directly interact with that, and then web and mobile experiences were built around that. And we talked about traditional publishers. I've got a physical print magazine or book for the industry. could be a catalog of equipment for farming. Well, that stuff has moved into the digital realm now, and I can discover that through online means, through my phone or through my desktop. Same with automotive data, right? If I want to buy a car, I can research that from my phone or from the web. So helping me discover insights, information, products, and services in a more efficient way. But so far, no beaming the information through the airwaves that I've seen.
Right. Well, you hit on a couple of themes that I think are really important for folks in this industry to know, which is, for example, it's great to provide data at the point of need, and let's say that's through an API, which is invisible to the end user. They don't know that it's XYZ company, information service company's data that they're accessing at that point, which can really devalue it when it comes time to pay your invoice. Right? It's like, wait, where are we using this? Where are we using this company? I don't log into anything from them. And of course, the answer is no, it's fully integrated. But you just may not know that as an end user. And so part of that seamlessness can also then hide your differentiation and your value in a way that's worth thinking about. How do you stay visible and relevant, and totally worth the invoice that they need to pay to gain access to that data set. The other thing that struck me as interesting, as we talk about APIs, I'm working with a couple of companies right now in different sectors where their customers are also very different in terms of maturity. And so some of them are not able to use APIs. They're not able to consume data in that fashion. And so they're still looking for, what's a flat file approach? How can I just get a data dump maybe once a month? Which certainly the cloud has completely changed the tool set in terms of how we can do that. We can do it securely. We can do large amounts of data. We can do all kinds of stuff. We can provide you with just deltas. We can provide you with a whole new data set. There's so many tools and things and techniques that we can do to make that, even that old stodgy flat file, here's a hunk of data, please use it as you wish and pay us a lot of money for it. We can even do that more evolved than we used to. But I think it's interesting to know that as these companies are facing their customers, they're facing a broad variety of people on that digital journey and readiness to take on newer techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where it's important to. Well, you need to do your research, right? So you need to design your overall product experience to meet the needs of your specific user base. And I think you really need to have at least the two channels of API and web and mobile product experiences, and then for the right use cases, data marketplaces. Some of the challenges we've seen companies come to us to help with are validating new product ideas. So we're really great at data. We're really great at generating insights and research and building content. Maybe not so great at launching a new product that meets the needs of the users because we really understand this space, but we don't necessarily know how to uncover the specific needs and validate a product idea. The way that I frame it up in my conversations with industry participants is you want to help increase your chances of building the right product, but more importantly, decrease your chances of building the wrong product. And you want to be good stewards of company capital, which is dollars, and time. And you want to generate ROI for your stakeholders, the CEO, the board of directors, your investor group, right? And you want to get through stage gate approvals for investment steering committees and things like that. So companies that can be fantastic at generating insights and information need to make sure they're designing for the end user and solving for their needs. And that goes back to the earlier comments around what are the right workflows, what's the right intuitive experience. Search is super important there. How do I extract the data and then visualize that data and then turn that data into a work product that can feed my own stakeholder group. So product validation, product design is super important, and I have seen companies evolve in their capability as they have progressed from publisher or traditional company towards more software and data driven to what on top of that we can add design, so you've got the whole portfolio
design, user research. Yeah, I mean, I often you and I both talk about this plenty of times. I think for the benefit of our listeners, so much of product development is psychological. And so getting deep inside the heads of your users and understanding their context, sometimes even better than they could articulate it. So it's not just asking them, it's observation, it's provoking responses, and then mental mapping those users and how they think about their problem, how they think about their point of struggle, what shape that takes, what language they use, those details really matter. And it goes back to our earlier example of a client who thought more visualization tools would increase engagement, when it's like, no, actually, I need a completely different set of features here to increase engagement. And the opportunity cost is real, not only from a money perspective, but from a time perspective. Your competitors are figuring this out while you're building the wrong product. And that seems very dangerous.
That's super important. And you can also be blinded by your own industry expertise. Mm-hmm. So we had a client, unnamed industry, who had 25 years of experience in their particular sector. And they identified an opportunity to launch a product using their kind of existing data in an adjacent market where they had professionals with a lot of expertise. And they had a concept for what the design user interface of the product looked like, and which data needed to be included in the MVP and which didn't. And through that professional user experience research, we discovered that if you don't include this data set over here, you're not going to achieve adoption in your MVP. Mm-hmm. And the way that you, as an industry expert in your field, think the design should flow at the product, it's not actually the design that your users want. But don't trust us, trust the user. And here we have got a video of users that we've researched. So that validation piece is super important. It's super important to leverage the craft and the capabilities of the UX research and design discipline, hand in hand with architecture and engineering and business acumen and all that industry expertise.
Yeah. Well, and since you mentioned it, we've just launched and are going to be running some campaigns on product validation offering, which is packaged as 3 design sprints, leveraging lean UX, design thinking. But as you say, like it's really about hearing directly from these users about how, again, they think, and so getting them to talk out loud, putting wireframes in front of them and testing hypothesis and getting actionable information that either disqualifies or enhances your confidence in your product hypothesis. And like you said, the opportunity cost of going the wrong way, it can be quite large. So just to stick with the fear, let's talk about ChatGPT for a second. Because we did touch on AI, and obviously ChatGPT is all the rage right now. It has put AI in everyone's lexicon in a way that it wasn't before OpenAI and the folks there launched ChatGPT. Are you seeing any of your clients incorporate ChatGPT or similar services into their products at this point?
So I would say companies are actively experimenting with generative AI, which can include the different LLMs and language models from OpenAI, including GPT, but also from other competitive solutions as well. Particularly enterprise scale clients who may have larger data science teams and may have deeper experience with artificial intelligence, or more nimble startups that have kind of started as AI and data engineering kind of native companies that have a little bit of a head start are doing that. I expect that over the next year we'll see a lot more volume of announcements of people saying we've included generative AI. maybe some of the early announcements could be how much is marketing versus how much is a real live use case. But certainly one of the best examples is Casetext launched CoCounsel in March 2023. Casetext is a legal technology, software, and AI innovator. They've been around for 10 years. They've got a 10-year track record of working in AI and data engineering in this space. And they had early access from OpenAI to the language models. But what a lot of people and so they've been successful launching a new product that serves law firms and helps save hours and hours and hours of attorneys and their talented staff going through and processing legal documents, right? Mm-hmm. But what a lot of people don't know is what it takes to productize Gen AI for that use case. And that's 4,000 hours of training and fine tuning, 30,000 legal questions, 400 attorneys from global law firms, all going through essentially product validation to tune the model to make sure that it's accurate. So what we have been advising our clients is to experiment with purpose and then proceed with caution, because we know that the LLMs are prone to hallucinations.
Yep.
And errors. And then you've got security concerns. You've also got legal contractual concerns, like I have proprietary data, but I also have third-party data. Which data can I put into an LLM? And
copyrighted protected data. Yeah,
exactly. And use obviously like a private instance, like a private copy of an LLM. And then there's the whole existential debate of large language models versus smaller models, and a lot of the innovation and venture capital is flowing into the smaller niche use case models, which have their advantages. But certainly that was one of the earliest wins in the information services sector, and that was serving law firms. But they had a head start, and they had a long track record of AI engineering and that kind of native capability. So I would say certainly right out of the box, the technology isn't ready. So you need to experiment with it. You need to test and validate, train over time. And as you and I know, you need to solve for need and minimize time to value. And you don't pursue technology for technology's sake. You come with an opportunity or a problem, and then you see if generative AI is the right fit.
Right. Yeah. Well said. And I don't know if you saw a headline. I wish I could remember where I saw it. I think it was just in my news feed as doom scrolling or whatever. But I saw a case for the first time ever. A legal brief was submitted to a court with made up case law. Basically, they had allowed the hallucinations into the brief. But they generated it through a large language model, pointed at case law, and they were like, hey, what could go wrong? And turns out plenty can go wrong. It can make stuff up. And that is, I think that's a real cautionary tale, especially as we start to think about trust. We talked about trust in terms of being reliable and being up, but trust in terms of the content. Is this real? Is this right? How many man hours do I need to spend following ChatGPT to see if it's right? How much of that can the company do for me so that I can trust this tool?
There's also who's the author of a document, right? So in the information services sector, there's a lot of scholarly publishing, medical research, scientific research.
Elsevier,
yeah. Companies are issuing guidelines. If you're going to publish research on our platform, well, number one, AI cannot be the author. And if you are, there's rules against manipulating images with AI. And if you are using AI in any of your research, you need to disclose that. So this is a new, in many ways, disruptive technology with incredible potential. And over the long term, it's going to be transformative. Over the short term, it's proceed with caution and purpose, and find out what the particular use cases are and the boundaries that you can operate within, given the state of maturity of generative AI and language models at this time. But certainly optimistic about the capabilities for me personally, I've used GPT to learn faster. We had a medical appointment recently, and did a trip to the doctor, and there were terms in there I didn't recognize, and I became really quickly like 10 levels deep on learning, which saved me a lot of time versus going out and going to Google and searching, right? So as more people start to use these and adopt them, they're going to have to they're going to start having expectations on how B2B products behave. So if I'm searching with a B2B product, I'm going to expect it might behave in a certain way. So I think that
natural language processing is so different from the way we've learned to search Google, right? So
yes,
it's
exactly.
very, it's a transformative experience overall.
So you might move away from fast food search in some cases to, prompts and things like that. And that's just something to keep in mind for the longer term.
Yeah. No, well said. And it'll be interesting. I mean, none of us have a crystal ball on where this is going, but I think the formula that we always apply here, and I often hear you recommending, is solve for need. Find that use case, that killer use case, and if it fits, use it. But don't assume it's a nail just because you have a great hammer.
That's right. Yes, so, I love that.
That's great. All right. So in wrapping up, I want to take you through a speed round, if you're okay with it.
Love it. Let's do it.
All right. So there's a ringing endorsement for you on your LinkedIn page from Matthew Schultz, who's a VP of Product Engineering at Forrester. It reads, in part, I still only have 2 books on my desk, and both are Bernie recommendations, which have too many dog ears to count. That's a great quote. He knows how to launch products, help teams work together even better, and I cannot recommend him or his team enough. What are these 2 books?
Okay. One is the product mindset, and one was Simon Sinek, a book. Oh, I'll have to get the title. Reach out to me, and I will get you I'll get you a copy.
I mean, I've read, I think, everything from Simon Sinek, so it's got to start with why, maybe.
No, it was later. It was about innovation. Here it is. The Infinite Game. Yeah.
The Infinite Game. Yes.
Yeah, the Infinite Game. So that was the book.
That's great.
Learn a ton from it. Sorry, I blanked on the title.
No, that's okay. It's a great recommendation. So congrats. You're one of the calmest, most unflappable people I've had the pleasure of working with. We've certainly been in some high pressure situations together before. What's your secret? Do you meditate, yoga? What are we talking about here?
Low blood pressure. I don't know. I just have
young children.
Calm and equanimity. Don't tell my kids that you said I'm calm all the time. They wouldn't believe you.
So this is a professional demeanor that you put on.
But it's a great compliment. I don't know. It's kind of like philosophy approach to life, but act as one team. We're kind of all this in together, and I guess the general overriding philosophy is even when the sky is cloudy and gray, it's always blue skies above the gray.
That's there you go. There's a little bit of philosophy there, right? All right. Last one. What do you have against feature parity?
I don't have any.
Because this is one place where you lose your cool and you become a little bit more passionate. So
I don't think we have enough time. But the short one is okay. So I'll tell a quick story. Like on one of my big birthdays, I did an adventure race for the first time, right? And adventure racing, if you're not familiar, it's typically like 3 different disciplines. There's some trail running, there's some mountain biking, and then there's some paddling. And it's a bit of a treasure hunt. So you might have like 20 different checkpoints that you need to find, and you get 3 different maps, and you kind of puzzle those together, and you figure out, and you try to be the first to complete it. But for most people, it's just go out there and have fun. But you can never assume that the other person in the adventure race knows where they're going, right? So you might be following someone like, I'm going to follow them because they've got it figured out. You can't assume that the other person has it figured out. You can become completely lost, even if they're completely confident. So feature parity, to me, if you are doing feature parity to go on par with a competitor, you don't have any evidence or basis for assuming that the competitor has actually has it figured out, right? Maybe they've got rapid growth and things like that, but maybe that could be their sales engine or something different. It doesn't necessarily mean that the product is solving for need. It could be a pricing mechanism or something else. So, I'd go back to the product mindset, solving for need and minimizing time to value. I really firmly believe in the principles. You need to talk to your customers and your users. And if you are consistently rolling out new features, you're adding complexity to your product, right? You can create a really convoluted, noisy product that doesn't necessarily solve for needs. So, constantly churning out features for the sake of having advertisable news, or worse, doing it because your competitors are doing it is not the reason. You need to have your ideas validated. One of the co-authors of the book, Jessica Hall, taught me something early on. She said, Bernie, it's sometimes even more important to learn where we're wrong as it is to learn where we're right. So the idea is to learn fast in the prototyping phase when you're working with paper prototypes and testing new ideas before you invest in what can be expensive code and infrastructure and everything else, is to validate and sometimes more importantly invalidate your ideas. But don't assume that the other person in the adventure race knows where they're going, because you end up lost and way off course if you're just pursuing feature parity because you assume that everybody else has it figured out.
I love the adventure race metaphor. Definitely works. That's fantastic, because I can totally imagine how seductive it is to follow that confident looking person right to nowhere.
Definitely, you've got a map, you know the terrain, and you've got to figure it out yourself and find your way.
It's funny how many conversations I've been in with executives who are yelling at me that we need to follow that guy, and I'm like, maybe, like, I don't know. I'm not saying that but should we do something to find out if that's correct?
One of the reasons why I loved The Infinite Game is you should not follow that gal or that guy or whoever, right? Because you need to be looking towards the future. I like the old Three Horizons of Growth, framework by McKinsey too. It's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit because of the speed of innovation, but I think the principles still hold true.
I agree.
Invest in your core, invest in your adjacent core, and then figure out in the future what disrupts you, and you build that so that you're disrupting and building for the future versus being disrupted.
Future ready. I like to tell people I can't future proof you, but I can future ready you.
Future ready, exactly. So, probably like the key takeaway from The Infinite Game was just breaking outside of the rules of today and thinking about the potentialities of tomorrow and getting there before everybody else does.
No, that's fantastic. Well, that's a great place for us to wrap up, Bernie. I really appreciate having you on and getting to talk to you directly about your industry and your insights. I think it's great that we get to do this. A lot of times we're co-hosting others, so this is a treat. So thanks, Bernie. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.